What's going on, guys? I want to talk about my first cold steel knife. I've been using this thing pretty darn hard for 3 weeks now, and it's a tank. It's definitely a tank. It will put up with anything. There are pros and cons to this knife, like every single knife, but under $100, this is probably one of the best utility knives slash tactical, if you will, for under $100 with materials and everything else. Okay, so here's what you get out of the packaging. Cold Steel, anytime, anywhere, right? Everybody knows the owner of Cold Steel, which started in 1980. Lynn Thompson is the owner, and he's in charge of marketing. And the marketing and everything is questionable. A lot of people don't like it. You know, that's fine. So if you don't like the marketing and you don't want to buy the knife, whatever, that's fine. But here's what I ask. Do the tools and knives that Cold Steel make actually survive the test? Are they actually capable of doing what they claim? Yes, they are. 100% are. So do other companies show that their knives can do all this stuff? No, they don't. So I like it. Stabbing animal carcasses or whatever, you may not have to do that, but there's a lot of ways to test knives and actually show the customer this thing will back what I say it will do. And I like that. They're putting their money where their mouth is. So there's other questionable things about Lynn Thompson and filing lawsuits for the name San Mai, whether he trademarked that and all these other things. A lot of drama, a lot of it's BS. I don't really want to get into it. I don't know Lynn Thompson. The guy might be a total jerk. I don't know. But I'm reviewing the Recon 1 by Cold Steel. So I'm just going to rate, the company off this knife and not Lynn Thompson's values. I have no idea. I know nothing about the guy, okay? Let's look at this product. Let's focus on this. So I've heard a lot about this knife. It's been around for a long time. This knife was, the company started in 1980, and it really, really popularized the American Tanto, is what Cold Steel would call it. And then it was adopted by military, police, and a lot of Cold Steel knives have been in movies and stuff like that also since the 1980s. And they came out with this knife in 1993, not this exact version. It had steel liners, different handle. It was probably manufactured by Camillus, I think, in New York. So they've had a lot of different manufacturing issues. I know it was Camillus. They went bankrupt. They went over to Japan. I think they have some San Mai stuff made there. They went over to China and then ended up in Taiwan. So disclaimer, if you only buy American-made products, this is an American company with knives that are made in Taiwan. Okay? So, after 1993, this thing has definitely changed. The locking mechanism, now this is a linerless handle, but it's still very, very robust, I'll say that. So it was revised a few times. In the 2000s, it was revised. And then 2010 was pretty similar to this version here. All right. So one thing I was kind of unsure about when I went to go buy the knife was just the ambidextrous capabilities and things like that. It came with 2 pocket clips, which I don't even think I have the other one. So instead of having one pocket clip that's able to flip on each side, since it is curved, they give you 2 separate pocket clips. All right. And, it held up to the legend. This G10 is out of this world aggressive, I have to say. I love it. I know a lot of people complain about how aggressive the G10 is, and I used this knife yesterday working on a water spigot. I dug a hole up and had to cut some stuff, and my hands were wet, and I tell you what, I had no question about the grip on this knife, okay? With that being said, I did modify this scale underneath the pocket clip because I do think over time this will wear your pocket down to where it will damage your clothing. So I don't know if you can see, it's not a huge difference, but there's the line right there. Okay, so it's super aggressive and then I took the pocket clip off. I took this screw out, and I put a piece of tape right here and right here. And I think I hit it with 220 grit for about 30 seconds. It was a whole lot of effort. So 30 seconds, and it's very smooth now. So whenever I go to put it in my pocket, it's smooth. And the clip retention, some people complain about that. I will never complain about clip retention. So this is going nowhere, okay? Even without the aggressive G10. So that's the only modification that I actually did. But otherwise, I love the grip. The finger choils feel great in my hand. Some people complain about that. You know, just like anything, people are always going to complain about something, but my hand fits this just perfect. Okay, I would say I have medium to large hands, and I really, really like it. The jimping on the back is not very aggressive because it's not in the metal. It's just on the edges. So it's not super grippy, but it's better than nothing. And then when you put that in context with the G10 here and the finger choils and the curve of the actual handle, it's a very, very ergonomic knife. Your hand will also not slide forward, which I really, really like. So the finish on the blade, not crazy about. I don't like shiny stuff. I like matte finish, but that's just preference. Doesn't matter. It's DLC. So overall, let's look at this knife. This knife is 9.375, 9 3/8 inches long. The handle is 5 3/8 or 5.375. So G10, the handle thickness is 0.51. So it's not extremely thick handle. And in your hand, it feels pretty thin, I think. The weight is 5.06 ounces. So it's not an extremely heavy knife. I'll compare it to some other ones soon. The metal, believe it or not, $89, is CPM S35 VN. All right. So I have scratched this blade up. Like I said, I used it a lot, and it is very sharp. I had to resharpen it because I used it a lot. And I did something really, really stupid. I was trying to do this cool Instagram video, and there was mud in front of me after digging this hole, and I was just going to throw it and, spike it into the ground and do like a slow-mo video or something dumb. Don't think I've done that since I was 12 years old. And when I did it, I threw this into the mud and hit a rock. I literally broke the tip of this knife off and had to fix it. I do have a wicked edge, and it took quite a bit of time, but when I threw it, I broke the tip of this knife off because that was an immature, brainless mistake. And I would consider that abuse, right? So that's not normal use. You're not going to throw a knife into the mud and hit a rock, okay? But I have sharpened this thing, and it is very, very sharp. Okay. So, it wasn't hard to sharpen at all, the S35 VN, but as far as doing some work to make the tip look somewhat normal, that took a little bit of time. But otherwise, this thing, it will shave hair on my arm. So, happy with the ability to sharpen the knife. And I think the edge retention's been great. I've done some chopping on wood. I've done a lot of cutting and stuff like that, and it was still razor sharp. So, very, very happy with the steel. I've had a lot worse, that's all I gotta say. The blade shape here is a tanto. I'm sorry. The blade shape here is a spear point. You'll also see this in a tanto or a clip point. So you have three options of the blade shape. I really like the spear point, and I felt like it was kind of the best of both worlds between the clip point and the tanto. So I just chose the spear point. I was happy to see it released, and I went ahead and jumped on it. All right. So it is a flat grind, as Lynn Thompson claims on the website. And like I said, this knife's pretty dirty. I haven't really cleaned it up, but I have used it a lot. It's never failed on me or anything like that. This does have a triad lock system, which I'm going to take the knife apart in a minute and show it to you. It's extremely durable, trustworthy, strong. I don't see it failing ever. I mean, it's an awesome, awesome locking system. It really is. It's very simple, but it's awesome. So I do like that. Some people complain that the spring is too hard to press in the back of the knife. I don't think so, but I know people say that a lot. So without further ado, I guess I will take this apart, and then I want to show you some interesting stuff with the washers here, because it's not bronze phosphor and it's not nylon. It's both. Yes, believe it or not, it has both on here. I don't get it, guys. I don't get it either. I don't know. But I'll take it apart and I'll show you the triad locking system, and I'll show you the washers, and then I will come right back and compare this with some other knives and finish up with some pros and cons and go from there. All right. Okay, so here is an inside view of the Recon 1. As we can see, there's kind of a dual washer system, which is very, very strange. The nylon is paper thin, and then you have bronze phosphor, which I feel like is kind of the standard at this point. So I'm a big fan of the bronze phosphor bushings, but this here is just paper thin nylon, and I know this knife is legendary and people have been using it forever. And I've heard some different ideas about why these are on here. One is they don't ever suspect people are going to take the knife apart, and they're never going to maintenance their knife. And they don't really give you the knife with tools and stuff like that, like Chris Reeve does for $450. So we're looking at $89 knife, utility knife, tactical. And they said the nylon can actually run dry and function fine. So they're saying that's why the nylon's on there, because people aren't going to take care of it anyway. And the bronze phosphor works better if you maintenance it and lubricate it. I'm not sure, but I don't know really what good this is doing at all. So this, I believe, was pressed against the blade. Then the bronze phosphor was pressed against the handle. So let's take a look inside the knife while I have it apart here. And like I said, the reason I took it apart is I was starting to feel a little grime after 3 weeks of putting it through a lot. This is the Cold Steel Recon 1 triad lock system. You know, you hear a lot about the triad lock system and how strong it is, and you see crazy tests online. Well, this is an inside view of what it actually is. Okay, so this is the G10 scale, right? So it doesn't have the full liners like it used to. From what I believe, this is a piece of plastic on the end here. It's kind of a spacer. The pocket clip even screws into it on both sides. You can see that. And then you have the spring for the lock, which is a pretty hard spring. It's fine with me because I would rather it be secure. And then you have the G10 scale, right? Rock solid. It doesn't bend. You can put a lot of force on there and it won't bend. All right. So you can see here, as you open the knife, it lifts this against the spring, okay? And as you open it, it's going to fall right into place here, just like that. Okay, so you have this stop pin here, you have the pivot here, and you have the hammer here. I guess that is the triad lock system. You know, the handle would literally have to break, or this mechanism right here would have to break. The tang would have to break. Things that are very, very unlikely. So I know this isn't the most expensive knife in the world or anything like that, and this is a pretty simplistic locking system, but nobody else is doing it, and it's extremely solid. I'm very, very impressed with this thing. No doubt about it. I just wanted to give you guys an inside look of the Recon 1. So you'll depress this spring here. It's going to unlock it and then close up. And also with the spring pressure, there is some hold there, okay? So it will retain the blade, I should say. You can lift it pretty far out. Okay, so I'm going to put this knife back together, and then I will continue the review. Just wanted to give you guys a good look at this thing. I'm going to put all four, unfortunately, all four washers back on this thing like it was intended. I'm going to put some lube on it, tighten it up with Loctite all over, and do a quick function test, and I will be back. Okay, let's do some comparisons here. Let's keep this one in the middle. Cold Steel Recon 1. We have the Benchmade Contigo 810. We have the Benchmade 570. We have a common budget folder, the Ontario Rat 1, also made in Taiwan. And obviously these are made in the United States by Benchmade. And lastly, let's break out the Chris Reeve and Cozy left hand, folks. So all of these knives are pretty ambidextrous. I would say the Rat 1 is the probably the least ambidextrous with the liner lock, but axis lock's great. This is an integral lock or a frame lock just for left-handed people. And then here it's not a lock back, it's a triad lock. So let's go over some of the weights. I think that's interesting as well. The Cozy is 5.01, which is incredible for having a metal handle. I think that's amazing. We have the Contigo is 5.92 ounces. It's pretty heavy. You know, you're also looking at steel liners as well. So that's why. Chris Reeve just amazes me with all metal. And it's lighter than any knife on here. I think that's awesome. I already talked about the weight of this one is 5.06. The Presidio is 8.6. It's aluminum over steel, and it is heavy. It's a tank of a knife. It's awesome, but it is a brick. And they just came out with the carbon fiber models of these. In the mini and the regular size, probably because that was a main complaint. This thing's so heavy, but it's awesome. So check out the light models. I don't have one yet, but they're pretty cool. And then the Rat 1 is 5.07 ounces. So the Rat 1 is pretty much the same weight, and it actually does have liners. So interestingly enough, right? So hopefully you guys have an idea of the dimensions and everything else when we compare them to knives that you may or may not have, but you have held or seen. And put that one right there. So for $89, I think this is an awesome knife. And I used it so much over the last 3 weeks. And I don't, like I said, I don't try to be easy on knives or have like safe queens or anything. But with this knife, I just felt like I can run it through anything because it's extremely stable, durable. There is no movement or anything like that. Like you saw, I took this knife apart and put it back together, and there's no movement. It's locked solid. You know, with a little movement, the blade will drop, and then I just close it with my left hand. It does retain the blade, like I showed you, pretty well. So it's not going to open in your pocket or anything like that. And then when you open, you have that definite click, right? That snap into place, which is pretty cool. I like that. This thing is very sharp, and when I drop it like this, I always put my finger on the forward choil like that, because I did it right here one time, and it closed and actually just touched my finger and cut it because it is sharp. So, like I said, with the pocket clip and everything, this is a great ambidextrous knife. The finger choils are exactly the same. Some knives you will see the finger choils, or you know, the spot for the thumb stud, really favors 90% of the population, which is right-handed people. This is not the case. The finger choils are the same on both sides. I think this is a great knife to have in a toolbox, your truck, something like that. It's awesome. Will this thing serve you in a tactical situation? I cannot see why not. It's like I said, it's extremely robust, especially for the money. It's probably one of the best bangs for your buck, for the buck you're gonna get. Tons of reviews on these. This thing's been around forever. People love it. So lastly, I just want to go over some quick pros and cons and go from there. Pros, the ergonomics for me are great. I like the ergonomics. I like the finger choil. I love the grippy G10. It's very aggressive, and my hands do not slide when they're wet, sweaty, whatever. I love that. The triad lock. I showed you guys that. I took this knife apart. It's rock solid. It is rock solid. It's not going anywhere. I like the triad lock. I think just the way it's put together, you know, I'm not worried about it closing on my fingers or anything like that. Dependability, like I said, over 3 weeks of pretty hard use, I haven't had one failure at all. It's running really fine. Now, after 3 weeks of use, you can't hear it, but I can feel it. You know, actually now it's not doing it because I took it apart, but you could feel a little bit of grit in there, like right here. You could feel a little bit of grit, but now that I took it apart and oiled it and everything, I think we're good to go. I Loctited the screws back down, and I'm pretty happy with it. The steel, CPM S35VN, any day. Any day, I love it. You know, it has a great edge retention. You can still sharpen it without amazing expensive tools, right? So I love that. You know, obviously I talked about the ergonomics and the ambidextrous ability of this knife. You can switch the pocket clip and be good to go. All right. You know, with that being said, I'll mention the pocket clip here in a minute. Definitely not a dual thumb stud that's very even on both sides. We'll talk about that in just a second. Overall price, awesome. Under $100. You know, $89 knife that you can beat the crap out of, and it's just going to keep going and keep going and keep going. I've seen videos of people in Iraq and stuff like that, overseas, YouTube videos of soldiers and stuff talking about carrying these and getting sand in them, and guess what? It just keeps working. So that's what you need, especially for a utility knife. You're going to be cutting all kinds of stuff with. This is not a safe queen. It's not supposed to be an extremely beautiful knife. It's not a work of art, right? It is a work knife. This is a great work knife. Cons. The cons, the G10 under the pocket clip was extremely aggressive, like I said. So it will hold on to anything even without the grip. With the grip, it will hold even better. So that's great, but it will tear up your clothes. I'm really sure of that. Over time, I think that G10 will tear up your clothes. So we have to modify it, and I don't really like that. But I usually don't do that with knives, but for $89, you know, we can modify a knife to make it work better for us, and that's fine. So I thought it was weird that they gave me 2 pocket clips. The finish is already wearing off the pocket clip after 3 weeks of carrying it nonstop. So whatever finish is on there, it's definitely not durable, but it doesn't bother me. I don't care. Like I said, it's a work knife. The washers, I don't get what's going on there. I would just have bronze phosphor washers on both sides. And if it's because they don't think people are going to take care of it, maybe I can see that. But having 4 washers on here, 2 on each side, I've never seen that in a knife I've taken apart. I've probably taken apart 50 knives, maybe more. Never seen 4 washers. So pretty strange. But I guess you can't complain. You can't argue with the test of time. This has been out since '93, guys. And I do like when companies keep refining a product instead of making a million new ones, which they do too. They have a Recon one, which is a great seller. A lot of people use this, and then they just make it a little bit better. Better steel, right? Better grip, better something else. I'm not sure. So I like that a lot. Like I said, I'm not really into the shiny DLC coated finish. I like the matte finish. I think that's cooler, but it's all looks. They say this will lower the friction point when cutting. Maybe, you know, maybe it's a little more slick. I don't know. So, the thumb studs, I don't know. I would say if I could talk to Lynn Thompson right now, I would say make a dual thumb stud knife. Okay. Chris Reeves making a dual thumb stud. This is a left-handed knife, right? So it's left-handed, but it still has dual thumb studs, which I think is interesting, but it doesn't bother me. I like it, right? Dual thumb studs. These are Benchmade. Dual thumb stud. Ontario Rat 1. So I would just make it a dual thumb stud. That's all I would do. Make it a dual thumb stud. So when you get this knife, if you are left-handed, you have to take it apart. And I actually used a crappy screwdriver at first and messed up the screw. First thing, right out of the box. Messed up the screw, but it's not the end of the world because this is a work knife. It's a utility knife. As far as the thumb stud that you actually use, I like it a lot. There are no sharp points or anything like that. A little bit of knurling on there, I guess you'll call it, and it feels great. Okay, so I like that a lot. Can you flip this knife open? Yeah, I mean, you can, but do you have to? So really like the thumb stud. It just needs to be dual thumb stud for quick ambidextrous. Then all you have to do is change the pocket clip like a normal knife, and you're ready to go. You don't have to take this apart. I feel like that's kind of weird, but whatever. Not the end of the world. Made in Taiwan is not the end of the world either. I would always like to see a knife, of course, made in the USA, because that's where I live and I like my USA blades. Okay, these are more expensive. I paid my American, we pay our American workers to make these. They're very expensive. Okay, this is an American company, but it's made in Taiwan. So I would like an American blade, or if they can make some American made knives like Spyderco, right? Spyderco has American made knives, and then they have some made overseas. So, and it says stamped on there where it's made. So that's kind of cool. You get an option. But anyway, for $89, this is a great value. The steel is great. The structure, the design is great. Like I said, every knife has pros and cons, and you can pick it apart. But for a work knife, if you need a work knife, utility, maybe self-defense or tactical, look into the Cold Steel Recon 1. They have the clip point, this is the spear, and they also have a Tonto. I do see myself buying more Cold Steels after this. I want to look into some of the light models, the SR models and stuff like that. They have some awesome knives, and most of them are ambidextrous because they have a triad lock system. So I do recommend this knife for under $100. This is one heck of a value. Thanks for watching, guys. Hit the subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this. I definitely have more knives to review, and I have one in the mail right now I'm really excited to tell you about. It is the Spartan Harsey folder, and it should be here any day now. It should be probably next Wednesday. Today is Sunday, April 19th. Have yourselves a great rest of the weekend, and I'll be back.